Hello, I'm Paul.
I'm Adam.
And I'm Ben.
And welcome to the Film Busters podcast. The film show with no filters, no prisoners taken, loads of disagreements, but one hell of a love for cinema.
If you want to hear three friends ridiculing each other for an hour or so regarding their taste in films, then you have come to the right place.
In each episode, one of the team picks a film for us to discuss. It could be anything from a recent cinema release to an all-time classic.
So, strap in and get ready to get mad or get vindicated as we guide you through the murky world of being a film geek.
If you like what you hear, you can also find us on Twitter and Instagram using @FilmbustersPod. You can also find each of our individual accounts. I'm at Filmbusters Paul.
I'm at Filmbusters Adam.
And I'm at Filmbusters Ben.
If you want to use your eyes instead of your ears, you can also visit the website at filmbusterspod.co.uk.
And if busting makes you feel good, you can also support us at patreon.com/filmbusters for exclusive content.
Or shoot over and get some groovy merchandise at society6.com/filmbusters.
Alright, can we just get on with this now, please?
Filmbusters. Julio, so what kind of impact has the Queen's death had in Texas?
In Texas specifically, I don't think they noticed. No, I think if you have social media, you noticed it. But there is, we have an election coming up, so that's really taking up most of it when it comes to politics. So I don't think I've seen, social media is how we experience the world now. And I don't think that as far as Texas, I don't think I've seen anybody in social media truly expressing an opinion one way or the other.
It's how polar opposites to how it is for us.
Every channel pretty much is about the Queen. There's no normal scheduled programming.
And if it's not
TV.
about the Queen, it's showing really boring TV, like daytime TV, like gardening programs, or the music's not really exciting. And the weirdest part I still think is when you go outside, if you go on the trains or anywhere, every single advertising building that normally has a big electric building is a picture of the Queen.
Yeah,
it's
Sainsbury's.
Like being
I went
in
to
North
Sainsbury's
Korea.
yesterday.
Yeah,
and there was. I know, but we have been. You must forget whatever your stance on it is. This is a lady who's been the monarch reigning over us for 70 fucking years.
I know,
so
but there's a little bit dystopian about it sometimes.
Well, you could say so, but at the same time, like for Paul probably thinks the same thing when the World Cup comes around every couple of years, and all there is football.
Yeah, but it's not on every single advertising
everywhere.
building.
Yeah, but he probably feels that it is.
Yes, it's everywhere.
A little less macabre, though. I mean,
yes.
Yes.
They cancelled football because of it, so Paul's happy there.
They have cancelled football because of it, yeah. The weirdest thing happened yesterday. We ended a week, so I said when Jenny gets home, come on, let's go to the pub, we'll just have a couple. And we went into the pub, got a table, got a couple of pints, and literally as I sat down at the table, the volume went up on the telly in the pub, and it was, I don't even know what it was. It was some service in St. Paul's where there was going to be this message from King Charles, and everyone in the pub...
King Charles Spaniel.
Swiveled and was looking at this telly. And I wasn't there going, oh, look at you, sheep. I was like, well, yeah, we better pay attention to this. And it was like this unspoken, there was something nice about it. Is what I'm trying to say. There was something nice about it because I knew, you looked around that room and you're like, there are people in here that don't give a shit about the Queen. There are Republicans in the British sense rather than the American sense, and like conservatives, liberals, but we're all here united just by watching this because we're acknowledging that it is a thing that is happening, a monumental thing that is happening in this country. Whether you feel emotionally about it or not, there's a big change, and it was kind of nice in that way, and it felt right to be in a pub lifting beer.
I was in the pub when she died.
Unsurprising.
We were in the pub watching the football, and it was weird. And then obviously she died, and they turned one of the TVs over to the news. So you had the news on one side, you had the football on the other, and then they were playing music in the middle. It was really weird. And then when the teams came out at half time, they just did a minute silence before the second half kicked off. And then it was weird after that because the football just didn't do anything. There was no analysis after the game. It was just a BT logo on a screen in black and white until the next game kicked off, and it was just really weird. It's like nobody knew what to do. It was just like, fuck, it actually happened.
It's because this country is not prepared for it, in that since television. When did television exist?
Well, yeah,
when was television invented?
Yeah. It was basically invented for her coronation. That's when it became big, wasn't it?
So
yeah,
TV just doesn't know how.
I mean, there's all the rules of it, but
respond.
it's the sudden if it's happening.
Yeah. But as a nation, I would have expected that they would have been a little prepared, because it's not like it happened suddenly, right? She'd been sick for a while.
They kind of told us about midday on the day it happened, and then she was dead within a couple of hours. But I mean, she was probably dead at the time. But
she was dead at the time.
Yeah, see, Jenny was saying this. I was saying no, because if she was dead at the time, the family would have already. This is conspiracy theory stuff, but I was like, no, if she was dead, the family would not be all traveling now.
Yeah,
so
but it's the look.
She's alive.
It's about all the family being together before they actually make the statement.
It's probably to look good, like they're together.
So the plan,
they were there,
which has been in place for years, is called
London Bridge.
London Bridge
has fallen.
London Bridge is down. Yeah, London Bridge has fallen, or London Bridge is down. One of the two. Which is the all the steps that kick in when the Queen dies. But the thing that threw a spanner in the works was the London Bridge operation assumed she would die in England, but she didn't. She was in Scotland when she died. So it meant it was Operation Unicorn. That was the name for it.
They got
which
to move
changed
her.
a bunch of steps. They have to move her. They're going to send her. They're sending her down a train line. Are you going to go to one of the stations and take your cap off, bow your head?
Well, the nearest station for me would be King's Cross.
Well, that she'll come through Crystal Palace, I'm sure.
No, she comes from Scotland. She's going down, not up. She's gone past King's Cross to go back up the country for you.
This is all very disrespectful.
Yeah. even this morning when I was at work, I was going to leave, and they were doing the whole thing where Prince Charles was pronounced king, or whatever it is.
That's
in
right,
case we get invaded in the meantime and we don't have a ruling monarch. I think is the why it has to be done so soon. But everyone was just sitting around watching that, and it's just again another church service.
I know. Too much church.
Anyway, we'll move on and we'll stop talking about it now.
Just as the Queen's left us, we have someone joining us on the podcast.
A king joined us.
One of the kings of podcasting. He's here.
God.
It's Julio from the Contrarians. How are you, my boy?
I'm doing great. This was not how I expected to start my morning. Would have been. It's very appropriate, because I guess I've been wondering what it was like, the experience of like the common man in England going through this big transition, and you guys seem fairly unchanged by it. So
It's general life. It should be unchanged. It's just the weird stuff around you. I was working at work with somebody from Holland, and they sent me a text when she died, and she was like, "Sorry for the loss of your queen."
I know. I have one of our board members is from Guatemala, and she messaged me within like 20 minutes saying, "My condolences, commiserations to all of you British people." I'm like, it's very sweet.
It's like, thank you,
appreciate
but
that.
You didn't have to say that. Like,
no, nobody said sorry to me at all. So
because everyone knows that you don't give a shit. You robot. If anyone was going to be robotic about it, I thought it'd be you, Paul. Paul won't give a shit.
I was going to say, I felt the same, like you said in the pub. Like yesterday, we sat down. No, this morning actually, we sat down to eat breakfast, and I was like, "Oh, we missed the King's speech yesterday." So I was like, "Let's just put it on while we eat our breakfast to see what he said."
The King's speech.
Yes, it's like
just like the movie.
Just
now.
like the movie. But it does feel like it's a moment in history. It's like, regardless of what you think of the family, this is a moment and we should all be present, kind of thing.
We'll do it again in about 30 years' time, probably.
But give a shit about the World Cup.
Yeah. Would you like one piece of trivia before we move on from the royal family? One piece of trivia which probably hasn't crossed over to the US of what our now king. This is a quote from our now king. You may know when he was with Diana and was carrying on an affair with Camilla, there was a series of messages that were being exchanged backwards and forwards, and I don't know how they leaked, but they leaked. And King Charles said, "Oh, to be a tampon inside you."
Oh my!
What?
God.
Did you boys not know that either?
No.
Oh,
I think I've heard it a very long time ago, but
that sounds so very weird.
It's a very visual.
And he repeated that quote on his coronation.
Yeah, he will. Back and forth they went on the tampon joke. We all feel sad. Although I will say, I did tear up. Like, I don't even really know why on the day.
It was
not
quite
before
emotional.
she died.
It was quite weird.
It was. It was actually when I was at Canada Water train station, and I was just like reading about Operation London Bridge, what will happen when she dies, and it was just like they were sort of talking about what would happen to the nations, the way the nation went, and that's all come to pass is exactly what happened. And I was like, fuck. It was like tears from the awesomeness of
it's a moment
the
like
situation.
it still hasn't sunk in
It's
that
huge.
the moment that everyone's talked about for years has actually happened.
I actually think the closest comparison, and this is no disrespect, but I think it is the closest comparison that is when JFK was assassinated, because the Queen in this country is held up much higher than any fucking Prime Minister is, whereas the President in the US is in lofty heights. And even though the Queen was 96 and bound to die at any point, people in this country thought she was going to go forever because of reigning for 70 years. So I think that
Keep
shock when
stealing people's
JFK
blood.
went...
You can live as long as you want.
Oh, you're a real conspiracy theorist, aren't you?
That's
David,
why.
I've
That's
got
why
to you.
royals were all hitting. Like, Prince Philip was crashing into all those cars all those times.
Say no more about this.
This is a really bad thing to say at this time.
Should we move on to talking about films?
Yes.
Yes.
What are we doing? The Queen's Gambit.
So let's talk about The Queen, that film that had Helen Mirren in it.
You know, so many podcasts are going to come out cover that now, right? It'll be all over the place. Check out our episode on the Queen.
What was the one with Olivia Colman in it? What was that one called again?
Favourite.
The favourite.
Anyway, we're here because Julio's brought us a film and he's kicked off a new round. It's the round of 2018. We're moving a year. We were doing 2019, now we're doing 2018. Julio, do you want to say what film we're doing today?
Today we're doing Paul Dano's opera prima, Wildlife.
Oh, what made you want to come and do this film with us?
Well, as usual, what I did was I sent you guys a bunch of movies that I wanted to watch. Most of them I hadn't watched ever. And then we started whittling them down by length and availability and how Adam felt about them.
I don't normally give a shit. I'm the one who normally has the least input.
That
That is
right.
It's
a lie.
normally Paul and
that's
Ben
about
that
right.
have it, and I just go, yeah, whatever.
No, it's usually Paul and Ben are like, well, this one or this one or this one. And then Adam goes, not this one, not this one, not this one. So that's how we actually narrow it down, because we know what Adam doesn't want to do. The real question is why Adam felt okay with this one. But on my end, I actually
think
got
it
this
was the
movie
most
for...
available at the time. I think all the ones you gave us at the time were unavailable. Like either we had to spend like 30 quid or we just couldn't get it, or I think
there was a Peruvian movie that we
could.
couldn't find with subtitles anywhere, so that was a big deal.
We will get that. Eventually we will do that episode. That's our holy grail.
our final
we will get
episode.
that movie one way or the other.
But yeah, no, this one in particular, I got a few Criterion discs on Christmas from my mother-in-law. This was one of them. She had gotten a list from my wife of movies that I was interested in, and she just got it for me. So it was there waiting for me to watch it. I had heard good things about it, but that's about it. I didn't know. And I knew that Paul Dano wrote and directed it. And I knew the cast. I knew Jay Gyllenhaal and Carey Mulligan were in it, and I liked them both a lot. So that was really it. So once you guys were on board, I'm like, this is the perfect excuse for me to finally knock this off the watch list.
Oh, yeah.
And
I was surprised it had a Criterion release, because I just hadn't really heard of it as well.
And it's one of those new Criterions, because usually they wait, but then every now and then they'll have a movie where it comes out and just a few months later.
What
gets,
happens for a Criterion? Like, what does it have to tick boxes, or is it like
Has to
approved?
meet a criteria.
Yeah.
I don't know who makes the decision, because, I mean,
Mel Gibson.
famously...
He decides them all.
Yeah. Talk about a conspiracy theory. No, I imagine there's a board. There has to be a board of people that rotates, because it's not like there's a unifying vision, I think, when it comes to which movies get picked. Like Armageddon has a Criterion, and that's one of the most famous examples. People go like, why would you give this one? I mean, whether you like the movie or not, like, would you put it on the same level of like prestige as something else? Yeah? Because I think the idea is that these are movies that are worthy of preservation.
Yeah.
I was talking to a friend yesterday. I have the Criterion for the first Danny Boyle movie, Shallow Grave.
Shallow Grave,
Yeah.
wow.
But that's the only Danny Boyle movie that's on Criterion.
How many
And,
do you have?
I have, I don't know, maybe like 30.
Oh, okay.
They're pricey. So you gotta wait till like there's a sale and then you buy them, or you tell your mother-in-law to get you a couple for Christmas. But why wouldn't you give it to Trainspotting, right? If you're thinking of Danny Boyle, you would think a more iconic Danny Boyle movie would be Trainspotting, like put that on the pantheon. But instead, they're giving it to his first movie, which I like, but not as much as some of his other movies. So I don't know what the process is to determine, what gets it.
I kind of like that criteria, though, because it essentially goes, we're not going to go with the obvious art house film, if you want to call Trainspotting that. The obvious film. We'll go with Paul Dano's directorial debut. Something. Paul Dano, well-respected actor, directorial debut. We know nothing about the film. Criterion release, though, because that's... whatever it looks like, we'll be able to say pretentiously that it looks good. And it translates well, I'm sure. David Lynch, he has most of his films on fucking Criterion, but Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me just got its one recently. There's the reason they've given it that, because the resurgence of The Return, and people are suddenly viewing Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me in this great glowing new light that they weren't for decades. So Blue Velvet was first out the gates for Criterion, I think, and then they said, okay, Fire Walk With Me now. Topical.
WALL-E, they just announced WALL-E coming out.
I saw that.
Yeah, it's the first Pixar. Wouldn't you give it to Toy Story? The first one just as an iconic, this one broke the mold. I'm happy with WALL-E. I mean, I'll get it when it comes out. It's a great movie, but it's...
But yeah, they're trying to play against type by not giving it to Toy Story. Because if you have it to Toy Story, it'd be like, well, obviously Toy Story, right? Because I think the thing with Criterions is when something comes out, it's like, oh, right, that's getting a Criterion release. Cool.
Yeah,
as
usually.
Opposed to,
I don't know who said that when Armageddon got it. Of course. Michael Bay's masterpiece. But anyway, Wildlife, I mean, I guess we're about to determine whether it deserved the Criterion treatment or not.
Very true. Well, before we kick off actually talking about the film, we got to say that it's 2018. What happened in 2018, Ben?
What happened in 2018? I got some... When I was looking for things that happened in 2018, a lot of American heavy stuff. So I actually had to plumb the depths to try and find a bit more universal. So there's a bit of American here, but a bit of UK stuff, which Julio you may be completely unaware of. But this was big stuff for us. So in 2018, in no particular order, YouTube star Logan Paul posted a video of a dead body in a Japanese forest, infamous for suicides.
I remember that.
The UK survived the great KFC chicken shortage of 2018. Do you remember this?
Yeah, when people were calling up the police.
Crazy. Did you have the chicken shortage from KFC, Julio?
No. Now you've scared me, because that might happen. If it happened in England, it could happen anywhere.
We panicked.
People called
the
police
big
and they
time.
were like, KFC has no chicken.
We're not leaving the royals yet. Prince Harry wed Meghan Markle at Windsor Castle, and the world went on fire afterwards. The UK got so unbearably hot, we almost lost our sense of humour about it. Do you remember that hot fucking 2018 summer?
I remember a hotter 2022 summer.
I don't think this summer was hotter, do you?
It was, wasn't it?
It was record breaking, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was hotter than...
Oh, one day was.
the
But
highest
generally
ever
speaking,
temperature.
2018 carried over a long time. Anyway, here's one
Well,
for
it
Adam.
is.
England beat Tunisia, Panama, Colombia and Sweden and even won a penalty shootout. That was mental, and we all had a lovely time.
And they all fucked
Elon
it
Musk
up.
baselessly called a cave diver who helped save the lives of 13 people a pedo.
Fucking hell.
You remember that? These are all the things that happened in 2018, guys. In 2018, also, there was a man who stole a bunch of beers from a shop. It was caught on CCTV, and everyone lost their minds thinking it was Ross from Friends. You remember this?
I remember this.
You really dug down to some obscure ones this time.
I did think you were just going to go, and it was me who stole the beers from the shop.
That's how we got into craft beer.
And Banksy had a painting go off, sell at auction, and the minute it sold at auction, it shredded itself with that mechanism that he built into it.
Amazing.
That feels like recently, right? There's other things like Russian spies launching
And now it's worth
attacks
even more
and,
because he shredded it.
Yeah, probably. There's a load of Donald Trump stuff, but I'm just not going to read it out. But anyway, that was 2018.
Wonderful. And 2018, on the Film Busters podcast, I can tell you we did these films. Halloween, in this order as well. This is the
You're
order
going
that
to
we
read out
actually
all the films we
rated
did
them.
in 2018.
Yes. This is the order we rated them in. This is from best to worst. Halloween, The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, Mission Impossible Fallout, Black Panther, Upgrade, Velocipasta, Adam, Infinity War, Can You Ever Forgive Me, Dragged Across Concrete, Hereditary, Burning, Solo: A Star Wars Story, The House That Jack Built, Jurassic World: Fallen Kingdom, Venom, Green Book, The Meg, and Tomb Raider is the bottom, of course.
Oh, 2 of our worst films of all time are in there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Of note, I am pretty sure Ballad Buster Scruggs is the first Filmbusters episode I listened to.
Oh, look at that.
Oh,
And I
really?
was like, these
Was
guys.
it because of the film, or did you just find us?
I don't remember how I got to it. It was the most recent episode you guys had that featured a movie that I had watched. So I know that's why I picked it. And I stuck with you because I liked the episode.
And now
Not,
look at
not
you.
like us.
Well,
Yeah.
obviously. But see, that's how you know. Because if I remember correctly, at least one of you wasn't as crazy about the movie as I was. Like, I love that movie. And
Yeah, I love it.
I don't think that you guys loved it as much as I did, but you still liked it.
Yeah.
And so you were able to like point out things that you didn't like and have like a good conversation about it. And there are times where I watch I listen to a podcast and it's like, whether they agree with me or they disagree with me, I just find like I'm not engaged in the conversation. And then so that'll be like, that's it. You know, you give them one shot and that's it. But in this case, I'm like, okay, I want to see what these guys talk about next. And so
Good.
How sweet.
I don't know
How
what you guys did
sweet.
next, but I just know that
Just
after
got
that,
shit
it just
after
became
that.
a regular.
Rest is
I don't know
history.
what we did after Buster Scruggs.
Halloween.
Yeah. Anyway, well, that's good.
Mm.
Yeah.
And that's it.
That's
That's
it.
2018.
Good.
And that's a lot of love from Julio.
That's a lot of love for Julio.
Unexpected
Thank
love.
you for that plug. Thanks, Julio, for plugging our own podcast to our listeners of the podcast. Are we going to go to the quiz bit
Let's
now?
do
Are we
it.
doing
Let's
the
do it.
quiz?
Come on.
Okay, all right. Well, listeners, this is I'm very excited about this round. So, all right, listeners, this is the section of the episode where usually we would go ahead with the quiz, but because we have Julio today and because I have a little fun game shenanigans to be had with old Julio this week, we're actually going to be taking the quiz to Patreon. So, Patreon listeners, go over to your feeds if you want to check out this week's quiz, because I will be testing Julio and his knowledge of Michael Myers masks. For the rest of you, you'll find out in the next episode how he did, I suppose. But for patrons, run along. You ain't going to want to miss it.
It was a lot of
Incredibly
fun.
relevant to wildlife.
Yes. We're about to do such an about face when we start talking about wildlife.
Right. So you can go check that Patreon episode after this episode, I guess. That's probably the easiest way to do it. So let's just move straight on to talking about wildlife.
What is it, Gene?
I've taken an apartment in town for myself, and I can move in tomorrow. It's a tiny place, but I can afford the rent, and there's room for Joe if he wants to come. It's a surprise, I know. I'm surprised myself.
Have you lost your mind, Gene?
No, I don't think I have.
Well, you can't get mad at me because I went to some fire.
I'm not. I was, I'm not anymore.
Well, then what is it?
I need some time to figure things out.
Figure what out? Gene, are you stepping out on me?
Yes, I am. But this doesn't have to do with that.
Who is it? Who is it?
It's Warren Miller.
Miller?
I've been teaching him at the Y.
Oh, you've been teaching him? So you moving in with him?
Joe, go to your room.
Gene! Are you moving in with him?
No, I told you I'm taking an apartment, the Helen Apartments. They're down by the river.
I know where they are. Christ! What are you having a hard week? Is that it?
No, not very hard.
Or are we not getting along?
I think so.
Boy!
I won't have this conversation if you won't take me seriously. Stop it.
Well, it's a wild life, isn't it, son?
Leave him be. He doesn't know what is and what isn't.
Right, everyone, today we are talking about Wildlife, the 2018 film from Paul Dano. This is a spoiler episode, so if you've not seen it, we're going to spoil it terribly for you, so you might want to watch it, and then come back and listen to this wonderful episode. First of all, I'm just going to say some people who've been in films we've done reviews on before. You want to pick any people out?
Jake Gyllenhaal's been in Nocturnal Animals.
Correct.
Has Carey Mulligan
Carey
been
Mulligan
in
has
Marvel's?
been in Shane.
Correct.
She's been in
Two
Marvel
more.
stuff.
She is not in Marvel stuff.
No,
Why would
Jake
she?
Gyllenhaal's been in. Did we do that Spider-Man he was in?
No.
No, we
Can
didn't
you
do
ever remember
Spider-Man.
what episodes we actually do, Adam?
We've done so
We've
many
never spoken
superhero
about
films.
that.
It feels like we've done them all.
No, we got a Paul Dano.
Oh yeah, for Batman.
Yeah, Batman.
Yeah.
And we've got Bill Camp, who plays Mr. Miller. He's been in 2 films we've done.
He's so familiar. I think he was in Batman.
No. He's been
That
in
was
a
Colin
Batman
Farrell.
property.
Yes.
Birds of Prey.
He's been in what?
He's been in Batman property, and also he's been in the film with Colin Farrell.
He was in The Joker.
And the Lobster.
Yes. And not the Lobster.
I don't know.
Killing of a Sacred Deer.
Ugh.
And just to say it as well, he was also the Jesus-like figure in Leftovers. He was on the boat.
No.
That's him.
Wait, Mr.
wow,
Miller?
Okay.
Yeah.
No.
I'm pretty sure it is.
I'm pretty sure you're wrong.
Really?
The Jesus figure is black in The Leftovers.
No, not the
No,
Jesus
no,
figure. The
not
one on
him.
the boat who's
Yeah.
he's very like mystical.
With the elephant.
Yeah.
The one who's controlling the elephant.
Oh, okay.
or
I'm thinking the
whatever it
first
is.
season. Okay, then I take it back. You might be right. Any
I'm
excuse to
pretty
rewatch
sure.
The Leftovers is a good one. So
Yes.
I'll get
It
to
might be wrong,
today.
but at least we can rewatch it.
Yeah. I'll shout out Zoe Kazan. We were just talking about the Battle of the Buster Scruggs. She's in it. And apparently she co-wrote
that's
this
true.
with Paul Dano, which I didn't know until I saw the credits.
Yeah. She was in the one, the Buster Scruggs one that was on Cholera, I think. The one with the dog, the little dog, and the Native Americans.
oh,
and
yeah.
they have the
Yeah.
bow fight at the end.
There we go. Right.
Hey, man, that Buster, just to go back to Buster Scruggs, I'll tell you something. How that Buster Scruggs song at the beginning did not win Best Original Song that year. What won Best fucking Original Song that year? Hang on.
Probably
Some
a Disney.
bullshit.
Some Disney.
Yeah, probably
Song.
a Pixar.
You like Frozen.
Remember Me from something.
Oh, of course it did.
Coco.
What's that from?
Coco.
Coco.
Of course it
Well, I
did.
haven't seen it.
That is worth
Oh,
it.
you haven't seen it. I was going to say that's
No.
one of those that makes you cry, Ben, but
Yes.
it hasn't made you cry yet.
Paul tells me exactly that this will happen. I blub like a motherfucker at these sorts of films, so I'm holding off.
Right, Adam, do you want to do a plot summary of this film?
Yeah, so this is about a young lad who's going through a lot of change in his life. Moved schools, moved areas. Well, he's recent at this school. He hasn't just moved school. And his dad goes off to fight fires, and his mum just goes, "Fuck you," and starts her own new life.
There we go.
Correct.
Fuck you.
Tell me I'm wrong.
Well, Ben,
Well,
you can tell him he's wrong, or you can move on and just do some facts about this film if you have any.
I'll just do a few. I'll just do a little few facts. Julio's already picked them. Mainly anyway. So this is the directorial debut from actor Paul Dano, who adapted it from the 1990 novel by Richard Ford of the same name. Dano wrote the first draft of the script itself before showing it to his partner Zoe Kazan, who I didn't know they were going out, but there you go, who's an actor and screenwriter in her own right, and she rewrote the draft. They passed it back and forth between them, and they share screenwriting credits. There's a bit of a labour of love between them. It premiered at Sundance before featuring at Cannes, Toronto, New York and London film festivals this year. And Dano is quoted as saying, "In Richard's book, I saw myself and many others. I've always wanted to make films and have always known I would make films about family." He has also said that this is the first in a series of films he wants to make about dysfunctional families.
He made any other films?
This is his only one so far.
Oh, okay.
He was
Julio.
going to make another one, and then he got cast as a Riddler, and then
Yes.
that's it.
And then he was like, yeah, I'm cashed in now.
I picked.
So Julio, this is your pick, so you get to decide whose impressions? What word am I trying to think of?
Yeah, impressions. I think.
I don't want to say impressions. I don't normally say that. What word do I say?
First impressions.
Who you'd like to give first
Yeah,
impression?
that's what I say. I do say impressions.
Yeah. With the caveat of first.
Whose impressions? Can you do an impression of Jake Gyllenhaal in this film, please?
Oh man, no.
So, whose first impression do you want? In what order, Julio?
All right. I think we're gonna go Paul, Adam, Ben, and then me.
Filmbusters order.
Cool.
Filmbusters, classic Filmbusters.
That's true. So, mostly, I left this film thinking what compelled Dano to make this specific story, and you kind of told me there if that's the kind of story he wants to approach, about very familial, and maybe it's part of his history of him growing up. Maybe that's it. I can like appreciate the study of compulsion to do something for yourself. Like that's the theme I'm feeling from this film, whether that be like leaving your family to do something for the greater good, or for your mental health, or pursue a connection with someone who appreciates you, or even just like an old man who just looking to get his end off, no strings attached. The idea of it, like whether it's right or wrong, is all subjective and in the eye of the beholder. And that was the most interesting thing I took from the film. But it's fine. The film's fine, but it feels a little forgettable in my eyes. But yeah, I think the biggest thought that stands is what's so interesting to Dano about these types of films.
Okay.
This is the second time I've watched it, and I don't really remember much from the first time, apart from the photo at the end. That's kind of all I remember, and I remember that happening in like the beginning of the film. And I thought it happened more frequently as well.
Did you? Were you rewinding
I think I got
it when you watched it?
confused about this film and a film where a guy works in a supermarket taking pictures.
1 hour photo.
1 hour photo.
No, not him. No, not 1 hour photo. He's like
The Master.
the Master. That's the one. I think I thought that was kind of like there was more photos in this film. I think is where I was going with that. It's really interesting. It's really compelling. I think every element of it, in a technical side of good, the acting's great. It looks great. It's well shot, but it's just not much there behind that all. And again, I'm not surprised. I don't really remember much of it from 2 years ago, and I'll probably be in the same position later on. I think it's just missing that. It's something like a little spark, and you can kind of get why it's gone under the radar a bit for its life.
Yes. I think that it is simple. It's quite a simple story, but for me, I think it's told perfectly. I think it didn't need to overly layer itself more than what it did, because the story it was telling and the themes that it has, which we'll discuss, didn't need any more like fucking layering it on with a trowel for me to think, oh, this is a deep film. First of all, I watched 400 Blows yesterday or the day before. Julio, I know you saw that I did. And my main comment on that was, yes, it's beautiful, but there is nothing in the frame that I care about. Whereas this, it's one of the few films where absolutely everything that is on screen in the shot complements what is going on in the film. The magnificence of what we're seeing on screen, from the Montana landscapes to fires burning, is offset with like little small intimate moments in his family life, which goes to show the tiny little things, the simplicity of a story, a marriage breaking down, can feel part of this awesome, magnificent fucking whole. I think Dano was the perfect person to direct this, because he directs like he acts. If this is how he's going to continue to direct, I cannot wait to see what he's going to be doing next, because he is a reserved actor, but not in the De Niro camp. He's reserved in that he knows when you don't need to say something, or when you don't need to see something, you need to see a reaction to something, a quiet solemnity, an observation to something. And when it came to the end of the film, and I saw that final shot that you're talking of, Adam, there's a reason that clearly sticks in your mind, because it is heartbreaking, really fucking heartbreaking. And I feel nothing but, by the end of it, absolute compassion for this kid. I felt desperate. He's in a desperately sad situation. The adults should know better, but I couldn't dislike any of them either, because it was such a convincing portrayal of like flawed humans, adults who make bad decisions, but actually that doesn't make them a bad person. I thought it was fucking wonderful.
All right.
There you go.
So I went in the Paul, Adam, Ben order because last time I was here, when we were talking about Age of Innocence, Paul and Adam were like super hard on basically the main trio there. And so I was wondering if you would be as hard on this family, on Jake Gyllenhaal and Carey Mulligan, you know, because of what they do. Because I know I had trouble watching the movie. I kept trying to be just understanding and compassionate, especially towards the Carey Mulligan character, as far as, you know, just understanding that she's at this very specific turning point in her life, and her actions have to do with that. And the movie kept challenging me because she escalates to a point where I just felt like, okay, this is at some point just becomes child abuse. And it was fascinating. That was one of the things that really kept me hooked in the movie, because I wasn't sure what we were heading towards. I'm like, is the movie supposed to make me feel like she is doing the right thing because it's about time she asserts herself and takes control of the narrative of her life? Or is the movie telling me that, no, this is horrible, it's a thriller, actually? You know, she has her son hostage in the poor kid's just suffering through this, and it ends up landing somewhere in the middle. Like, it doesn't really fall in one genre or the other. It's more like what Ben said, these are flawed people. It just, you know, it's a set of circumstances that affects everybody. I liked it a lot. I agree that final shot really is what ties the movie together. Before we got there, I wasn't sure. I kind of felt like they were maybe heading towards a happy ending of sorts, you know, because it jumps forward to, I don't know how much further in the future. And now it seems like they are happy within a status quo, that they figure out how to survive somewhat as a family. And then you get to that final scene, and it is just heartbreaking. Just the performances of all three of them. It was like, it snuck up on me because I was just getting ready to just kind of, okay, the movie's about to end. I was getting ready to just move on. And then it happened, and I was just like glued to the screen for the next, I don't know, 2 minutes. It was great. So, I'm a big fan. I can't wait to discuss everything goes on, because I think that the plot may be simple, but there's a lot of things that the movie's questioning. And I kept myself from delving into the Criterion special features, because they had a lot of interviews with Paul Dano, with Zoe Kazan, with the author of the book. And I really didn't want to bring any of that into this conversation, because I want to talk about how I experienced it as I was watching it. And then I can, I can go back for the special features later. But I want to hear from you guys, and I want to see what resonated with you and what didn't.
We'll do another special Patreon episode of you watching the special features and doing an opinion on them. I think it's kind of that backing up of like, it does everything so right, but at the same time, it just still leaves you a bit like, it makes you question everything. It leaves you with the questions. It leaves you the answers. It'll be great to do a podcast on it in this aspect, but I still just don't think it just leaves you, I don't know, it just leaves just a bit like, oh, was that it? Not like that's it, because it doesn't need to do more. I just feel like the remembrance isn't there. I don't know, already, kind of. It's hard to describe kind of it, but like you said, you couldn't fault it when you're watching, you can't fault it when you're out, but then you're like, oh, and it leaves you with that lasting shot, which you should question afterwards, but only for a little bit, and maybe we'll digest it here, but you're not going to question it in a day.
I think the most interesting thing about this film for me is just the balancing of them, of why each person is doing the thing they're doing, and what people on the outside see that individual, whether they're doing a good thing or a bad thing. Like, there's a balance and there's an answer, and it's both are correct. kind of thing. So like even Mr. Miller, where I just feel he's just trying to live his life to the best he can. He's like, yeah, I appreciate your father's gone off. He's doing a good thing. It's like, but I'm sleeping with this woman because she wants to sleep with me. That kind of thing. Yeah.
It's not like he's forced her to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like he's taking people. He's just taking the opportunity because it's offering itself to him, and that's what I like. But you can also just see it as like a negative as well. There's a positive and a negative spin on every character that you're like presented with.
The reason they fuck up for me is because they're parents. If they weren't parents, it's like, okay, go do your thing. You go right. If you want to fuck off and fight wildfires, go ahead. If you're going to find meaning in that, fine. Because she's going to be all right. She wants to go off and exert herself in a new way, carve her own path. But they're parents, and that's what makes this. A hard watch, because that kid. That is a stunning performance.
Yes,
because he doesn't have to be bombastic in what he says. Everything is on the look. Everything is on his face.
He wants them to
so
be
many
together.
Moments. He wants them to be together, and you understand that because he's like what, 14. You can identify with that. It's like, yeah, of course, you want them to be together, because it's not like prior to the split they were having blazing rows and he was caught in the crossfire and he would on some level know they should be apart. As far as he's concerned, the family unit was there before. Yeah, they were hopping around from town to town and job to job, but they were always together. And now that's changing, and his whole world is changing. And he has no control over any of it. His mum and dad are spinning out, and he's just there watching it happening. He's trying to hold it together. He's going to get the groceries. He's trying to cook the dinner. He's driving his mum home drunk. But he's a fucking child, and they have both neglected him terribly in their own way. I'd be interested to hear who I think personally. My opinion is I think the film doesn't judge Carey Mulligan's character harsher, but I think an audience would watch this film and judge her more than Gyllenhaal's character. But
it's just because of the actions that I think she's done. It's like he's doing it for the family and she's doing it for herself. I think it's kind of how you look at it. Like he's doing the job to provide,
that is,
but at the same time,
that is kind of like the crux of it, right?
But he's not, because he's doing it because he's selfish at the same time, because he wants to fulfill his own need when he could just go get a simple job and go back to the golf course. But
exactly.
He's still got the intentions of the family at heart, I think, is probably why you judge them slightly differently.
So did you guys, watching the movie, did you find yourself siding with one parent over the other? Because I imagine
you
we
side
all...
with the child, I think, is where you kind of go with it. That's your compass throughout this film.
Okay.
I can imagine people naturally being harsher on Mulligan just for the fact that she's got more screen time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's kind of like what Adam said. Jake Gyllenhaal, as selfish as he may be being, because he's doing it for himself, but he is off doing something that you can consider noble. He's fighting the fires, whereas like she is going out and sleeping around with like some older dude that has money. And I was trying to determine during the movie what was going on behind her. Like with Jake Gyllenhaal, I got it right away. He feels that he needs to vindicate himself. Suddenly he finds himself emasculated. He's not the top provider, and he just feels like he needs to do something to prove his worth. He tells his son, he's like, I have this buzzing in my head, I need to make it go away. I was like, I get about it.
This,
with her, especially because it's almost like overnight that she has this transformation. And I was like,
it's literally overnight that she has that transformation.
Yeah. So I was like, is she having a mental breakdown, or was this always her? And it's just
need
that
to be loved, I think, wasn't it? She's got he can't provide her money. This man can provide her with money and give her attention and fulfill her need to be wanted again, I think, is what she was.
But is it that, or is it because she has moments where she kind of like drops the act and you can see that she is not happy with what she's doing? Like, especially when they're having dinner at Mr. Miller's house, and she stops herself and she looks ashamed or troubled, and then she'll put it back on again. And I'm like, so is this like a strategic move as far as like, this guy has money. I don't think Jake Gyllenhaal is coming back. I don't want him to come back, so I need to do what's best for our life going forward.
I don't think she wants to get something out of her system, I think, as well. There was maybe that side of it all, of like, did they say they were together since school? or something.
I can't remember if they said how long they were together, but she's 34 and the kid's 14, so they must have been teenage sweethearts.
Yeah, and they said he went, I want to go to the same school mum and dad went to.
Yeah,
but that's kind of crazy.
Said, fuck you! You don't do that. Fuck you! Working on the railroads is not a good answer.
But okay, if you're gonna be rebellious, because that was my other option. I was like, okay, maybe you should just what Adam said. She just wants to get it out of her system, be rebellious. Why are you being rebellious with Mr. Miller? I mean, there have to be more
because he provides her with money and he's there. He's rich.
Yeah, and I think the Mr. Miller thing is like he is the complete opposite to Jerry. That's true. Okay, older man, but he's successful, self-made, runs his own business, stable. Like he's not going to be losing his job next month. But I think her motivations run deeper. I think that she has. We're shown so little of housewives' experience in 50s America, often in films, and she starts off in her traditional place at the beginning of the film. Good housewife, happy, providing, they're just having fun while Jake throws the pigskin outside. When he loses his job and comes home, like you say, Julio, her mask is down at first because she's like, what did you do? And then he's like, nothing, they fired me, they just didn't like what I was doing. And then she's like, oh well, they're idiots to be doing that. They'll regret that. Puts on the face again, but very quickly she's like, well, I'll get a job. And then she not only goes to apply for a job at that point, prior to that, when I think she's trying to cash a check for the kid's school, and they're like, oh, the check bounced. And then she starts telling a story of when she worked in a school, and the woman's like, yeah, we have no vacancies. And she's like, yeah, no, I wasn't after that. But I think she was. And I think it's kind of planting a seed that early days she wasn't happy with this housewife role, because when she can start going out and providing, she actually enjoys that. She enjoys working at the Y, teaching them to swim, and she says exactly that, Adam. She says it would be good for me to go out and make some friends. So I think actually she's always been traveling around with this family the whole time, and it's always been at Jerry's behest. Wherever he gets fired, we have to go somewhere else. It's his life we're living. She's fed up. She wants to do her thing. So the minute that he decides, fuck it, yes, I could provide more money for you by doing a banal job here, but actually I have this calling, and I get it, but I have this calling to go and do this other thing for less money. She's like, you're meant to be providing for us. If you're going to walk away from this family, then I'm going to start making strides the way that I want to do. And notice, overnight, it is that overnight change. The next day, she is very professionally dressed. Her hair is done a different way. She's a working woman. She's ready to go out and work. But in the space of 24 hours, when the kid comes home, Mr. Miller's sitting on the sofa. So already the fucking situation is about to change, because it's like, okay, I've gone from housewife to job seeker to employed professional woman to kept woman again, but at a much higher standing. And I think she's just trying to fucking find her way with it. She's in a spin as much as Jake Gyllenhaal is.
The only person who knows what they want is the kid, and he wants them to be together.
Yeah.
Well, Filmbusters, you're surprising me with your open-mindedness about the Carey Mulligan character. I thought I was going to come in here to defend her, and instead I'm going to come in here to just tell you how I had more trouble with her character than you guys did. And I think that once the movie was over, I was able to look back and just kind of like piece everything together. But there was the middle of the movie is, like I said, I was having a lot of trouble not thinking of her as the villain in this story, even though I kept telling myself, well, there are reasons why she's doing this, but specifically at the point where she abandons her kid outside Mr. Miller's house, she's like, I'm going to go drop this coat off. And you know what's going to happen, but still, it's just heartbreaking to see that the kid's just there, and she goes in there. And honestly, I thought she was just going to stay for the night. So I was glad that she eventually came out, but it's still brutal. That's when I completely turned off. I was like, okay, no, I'm reading this wrong.
Do you reckon sorry, Julio, to interrupt, but do you reckon you treat that a different way because we'd look at you treat her as if your wife or girlfriend or partner had cheated on you a little bit?
I think that's part of it, because that was going to be my next question.
Like, you wouldn't feel when you see it from Mr. Miller's point, you're like, oh, he's just got his end away kind of thing. He's happy. And if you're the one who's going to be on the receiving end of her actions as you in your personal life,
I think that might be part of it.
On it and say what she would think of it, and see if she thinks it's the other way around. If she really hates Jake Gyllenhaal for what.
But I think that the problem is that there's a kid involved. Because if there wasn't a kid involved, I think that there would be a different thing.
And she went out for dinner
Yeah, that's the thing. You're dragging your 14-year-old to this situation.
You're letting him drive home, and he's had a glass of wine.
She didn't give him that.
Well, she didn't know that. She didn't know that he'd be drinking. No, but she's over there making advances, flirting with like a man in front of her child who idolizes his own father. So that just seemed cruel. And you know, like she's not thinking of him. That's why I kept going.
His father get fired as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's. I think if you reverse the roles, if it was Carey Mulligan going to fight the fires and Jake Gyllenhaal doing this, I would still feel the same way because
I think it'd be worse
there's a kid involved.
Still.
There is a innate sexism in filmmaking anyway, but I don't think it's in the filmmaking, but it's just in how text like this gets read. Is that for women to be unfaithful is considered much more problematic than for men to be unfaithful. And ultimately, you said it there, Julio. She abandons him. She leaves him outside. Fucking Jake Gyllenhaal abandoned them for much longer, though. Like symbolic, like he.
But it is
left
that element
the
he can still provide and still do good from it. Whereas her,
but we also don't know what
up.
Jake Gyllenhaal's doing. And when they go and visit the fires, it's like, yeah, they're probably all cheating.
And also, didn't she say
Sleeping
he's
with the
got
women.
many women in many places or something?
Yeah, but that
I feel
seemed
like that's how she
unwarranted.
justified it.
Yeah. Well, there is this thing that I kind of came to terms with about halfway through the movie, maybe a little earlier, which is that we really don't know what happened before the movie started. So maybe he's cheated on her before. I think it's key that we always see everything from the kid's point of view. And it's like you are witnessing the moment where he realizes that his parents are human. And so even if there's been hints of the marriage not working before, they've gone over his head. And this is the thing that tips it over. And now he is fully aware of every flaw they have. And he's just coping with that. So it could be that before this movie started, you know, when they were living wherever they were living before, he either cheated on her or, you know, she says that he's had this behavior before where he keeps quitting and moving, and so she's already frustrated. And maybe if we had seen like the Wildlife prequel, we would see more hints of how she just wants to do this kind of thing too. She feels repressed and she keeps wanting to go out and she sacrifices it for the sake of her family. And so I kept having to just rationalize that while watching the movie, and it worked because there was every time I felt like I wasn't sure what was going on, like if this was justified, I kept going back to, well, we're seeing it from the point of view of the kid. And he would feel this way. In his mind, this is the first time he's seeing his parents act this way. So he's processing it the way that we're processing it throughout the movie. And in his eyes, a man going out to fight the fires is something that is noble. A lot more
especially because he
understandable.
also helps the community, and is what's kind of done, isn't it? Maybe.
All of that is bullshit, by the way. Like his reason for doing that is it isn't selfless. It's for him.
Yep.
It's absolutely 100%. I've lost my job at this golf course. That's humiliating. They've offered it back to me. I can't go crawling back with my tail between my legs. I won't work in a grocery store. I won't do some other well-paid jobs to support my family. What I need to do is something completely different from all of that. Some higher calling machismo bullshit so I can become a man again. I'm going to go fight fires. I don't know how to do it. I'm going to go and do it though. This is a guy who when he was employed at the golf course, don't forget, when his son was saying, oh, at school they said the smoke might travel over here. He said, they're just trying to scare you. Like he dismisses the threat of the smoke. Now all of a sudden it's something that he needs to go and fight. It's completely his own calling. Like, I need to do something for me. And Carey Mulligan was like, well, fuck it, I'll do something for me. Both are wrong. Don't get me wrong. Both are wrong. They are neglectful. The only innocent in this thing, the only right person in this thing is Joe. They both neglect in their own different ways. It's just that Jerry does his shit under the cover of noble acts for the community.
But I think he has that moment of he's honest with the kid. Like, before he leaves, he tells him basically that he's doing it for himself. When he says, you know, that line about like, I have this buzzing in my head, that's nothing to do with helping the community or fighting fires or anything.
No, that's true.
He's being honest with his kid. And I think that maybe that earns him a lot more sympathy from the audience. Whereas with Carey Mulligan, there's no explanation right away. You're just like, what the hell is happening? She seemed to be like a responsible mother, and then suddenly she's just all over the place. So it's
I thought she was going to be on drugs. The way that she switched, so I thought drugs are at play because this is not the woman that we saw at the beginning. But I just think it was the facades. It's how she thought she was supposed to act in that situation to keep the family together. And when her husband left, they were both selfish. It was a case of, I need to protect myself. Jenny called it survival last night when I was talking to her about it. She said, I said, why did she do that? And she said, that's survival kicking in immediately.
What did Jenny
because it's a case
think of like who was in the wrong? Like, we have this conversation. Have you had this conversation with her?
Both of the parents.
Because I'll be interested to see, like, as a female point of view, if she despises Gyllenhaal like a bit more than we do. Like you still find the reasoning behind it.
She could see it from both sides. And like, it is easy. It's kind of like, the other day when we did the two popes and we were saying how you get 20 minutes of Pope Francis' backstory so that you feel a bit more compassion and see where he comes from, when you don't get that with Benedict. Here, what we get is an hour in the middle spent with Mulligan, which we don't get with Gyllenhaal. So we get to see her for an hour behaving terribly.
Yeah. Well, you're still spending the time with the kid, isn't it? You just happens to be the one who's with him. And then he goes,
he's our lens,
he flips to the other side, doesn't it?
See, I personally would say I would probably lean closer to Carey Mulligan as the more sympathetic character. Obviously, the son's the most sympathetic, but it's firstly, what is Jake Gyllenhaal actually doing for the family? It's all his own interests, as you say, Ben. I totally agree. He also is trying to make his son play football when he doesn't want to play football.
That's really why you turn on him.
Yeah, there we go.
Yes, the football thing. The opening scene, Paul was like, I'm out.
Even if it's American, I don't give a shit.
And Carey Mulligan's present. She is there, as you say. Jake Gyllenhaal's gone. And from the off, I felt like she was so supportive from the off. Like when Jake Gyllenhaal lost his job. Sorry, I'm not using their character names. I can't remember what their names are.
All J's. Jerry, Joe, and Jeanette.
Oh, okay.
Why are they all J's? It's weird.
So I thought she was very supportive, and she was like hopeful. She was hopeful that he could get something good out of it. Yes, she probably wanted the job for herself, but she was hopeful for him, for starters. And when she's trying to find a job, she's also trying to find a job for him as well. She goes out of her way to try and help the whole situation. So it doesn't even surprise me that when he goes and leaves, it's like, well, fuck you. I'm doing this all for me now. Whether that be get a job, go find someone else. It's just how far she goes. When does she go too far? When is that moment? And I do think, yes, it is when he gets left in the car.
She should have never taken the kid, man. I know he was 14, but
I think it's the whole time it's her lying to herself that she was doing it for the good of the family, to make a new friend. And I think it's that still, like when she's even at the mill, when she goes through the phases of sitting down and reflecting and being like withdrawn, it's like it's a mindset like do I, don't I, kind of thing. Like she gets in the car to leave and then goes, now I'm going back, and then is it kind of stuff. That's the reason he's there.
I guess this is why this film's so interesting with the female and the male perspective. Because I can imagine it can be different depending on your sex. Because it's just like...
Well, I was thinking but
then the idea that Mr. Miller, he's sitting there and he's saying, "Oh, your father's so respectful for going off fighting the fires." It's like that's his opinion. I'm not talking about just characters, like the viewers of the film, as in people in their life in the film as well. They see it as respectful that you'd go off and try and fight because it's something being done for the community.
It's like going off to war.
But I also think he's just trying to keep the kid happy while he tries to fuck him.
I don't know how respectful he really is of Jake Gyllenhaal, of Jerry in that moment. I think he's a player. He knows what to say in order to keep the kid happy.
He was cynical. He was cynical.
No, look, he has that moment, and this is like the centerpiece of the movie for me. Like this is the one that kind of unlocked it. When he has his big monologue about how he was flying and the geese, and how he turned the plane off, and he tells him that was a moment where it was dangerous because he lost his humanity, and he's like, there were people I loved, and it doesn't mean that I stopped loving them, but I just, for that moment, I just stopped caring. I just didn't care. It was so he's talking about doing something very selfish, and that doesn't mean that you've turned on everything that you loved. It just means that you're blinded by your own self-interest. And that's what happens to everybody in the movie. That's why Jerry goes to fight the fires. That's why Carey Mulligan goes on this weird self-discovery journey with Mr. Miller. That's why Mr. Miller, okay, let's say that he actually does admire Jerry for going to fight the fires, and he does appreciate like that family. It doesn't matter, because in the end he wants to sleep with Carey Mulligan. She's right there, so he's just gonna barrel through all the things that he might consider important just to get what he wants. And that's what they're all doing. And so I think it's something that just gets to the core of these characters and just people being human. I guess a human, you are vulnerable to making terrible mistakes because you're blinded sometimes. And just it's a matter of whether you're able to come back from them. And I think that the movie argues that you might. I mean, the damage is still done. It doesn't go away, but where they are at the end of the movie is somewhere that I honestly didn't think that was going to be possible at some point. Like, but when we were heading towards the third act, I was thinking there's no way that this family survives in any way. I think that they're just going to be obliterated once everything comes to light. And it didn't happen. I mean, they were, at the end, they're not what they what they used to be, but they're found some sort of balance, and that's kind of impressive.
When you mentioned the geese, I kind of took that in a story of where he can blend in. He can be one of those people if he needs to be as well. It's like he was trying to blend in and be a goose with all the geese. Like he's like, I can be like, if you want me to play in and play this game, I can blend in and play the game. Like
that's
I
true.
Can do
the
what
geese
it
are
takes.
like the firemen.
Yeah.
I like the fact that there's probably a moment in this film where each of them, the three adults in the film, they overstep the mark, right? So with Jake Gyllenhaal, when he's pouring the petrol, I think that is the moment where it's like, okay, this is beyond. This is beyond. Like, we can kind of understand your mindset, but then you've gone too far. Carey Mulligan was the moment. She had her moment where she could have changed everything round, where she goes out saying, I'm leaving. The moment was when she goes back. Right, that is the moment. And Mr. Miller, man, it's when I see him naked in the corridor.
Oh yeah, gross. Gross, man. Because they allow you that silhouette shot of his dick.
He's all hunched over.
Like, come on, I know. But hang on, tell me, this is insignificant in light of the bigger things we're talking about, but why do they then leave and get in the car in the middle of the night?
No, I had the same question. Why are they even there in the first place? He's a grown man with a house. Why are they having sex in her house? Yeah,
I assume it's because she wasn't able. Like they weren't going to leave Joe along because he's too young, so they can't leave him alone in the house.
She was found with a drink at the side of her bed, so she's been drinking. So
it was literally 2 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Like she went outside, got in the car as if they were about to go somewhere. He went into the bedroom, and then suddenly she just came back into the house.
I thought we were going to see the old. He leans back in the driver's seat and down she goes. Yeah. I thought that's the way. That's the way it was going. But Paul Dano had the good grace to pan away.
Maybe in the next film he will push the boat out a little bit.
Just while I think about that, by the way, Paul Dano, the genuinely fucking outstanding debut as a director, because he knows when to pan and when to show certain things. The main shot I'm thinking of is the scene that you're talking about when she goes back in the house, and we don't, for a long while, we see Joe's reaction. We following Joe. He sees something long before we do, and then it pans over. But you know, one of my favorite shots in the whole movie is when he's had an argument with his mom. Can't remember exactly what happens, and the implication is kind of like that he's going to run away, or he's going to go someplace. He needs to get away from his mum, and he goes to the bus stop, and just before the bus pulls in, the snow starts falling, and you know that it symbolises the return of his dad. And as that bus pulls away, the camera's on the bench, and it slowly pans around to that magnificent, again, that Montana landscape. You know, that fucking... In the UK, we just don't have it. It's that American landscape which looks like poetry on film, and he's just running into the distance. And it's like, that's just such a gorgeous shot, man. And for Dano, who is young, he's still young, right? He's like younger than all of us, I think. Or maybe
not me.
I just think of him from, he's probably a bit older than you. at his age to be doing stuff like that. Like, he has learned from the masters already. Yep. He has learned from fucking Paul Thomas Anderson, man. That he has got that brain already fired in, and I can't overstate enough how much the reaction.
He's 37, by the way.
Oh, is he? Well, okay. The fact that he keeps focusing on Joe's face in situations, it tells us more than any additional dialogue could do. And I love dialogue, but this is one of those films where it's like, you don't need that dialogue. Whatever dialogue you could come up with would just muddy the waters of what you're trying to tell me in this scene. And all of this conversation we're having about who's wrong, are they right, whatever. It doesn't matter because they neglect that kid, and these two should not. They can do whatever the fuck they want if they ain't got kids. They got Joe. They should not be acting the way that they're acting. They're not terrible parents from the outside, but they are fucking this kid up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that shot, the bus shot, that is almost a trope, but he manages to make it interesting because we've seen that shot before, right? Where somebody's ready to leave, and you're like, the bus pulls, and they're still there because they didn't leave. Yeah, but
I thought Jake Gyllenhaal, I thought Dana was going to fuck up, and Jake Gyllenhaal was going to have gotten off that bus. And so when that bus passes, I would, that's too much. Yeah, with the snow comes Dad. I would have hated that.
No, instead it's like, he isn't there. Yeah. There's another one that I noticed the same thing. That, how he likes to just leave the camera static while something else, the action moves away from the frame, and then he just waits for the action to come back, or waits a while before following it. When he said at school, Joe said school, and he didn't do the homework, and so the shot is framing him on his desk, and his friend, his sort of girlfriend, is next to him, and then he leaves his desk to go talk to the teacher and explain that he can't do the quiz because he didn't do the homework, and the camera just stays on his empty desk, but you can see what's her name, Molly, Ruth, right?
Yes.
She's there in the background, and she is absorbing the scene that's happening off camera, which is him telling the teacher that he can't do it, and the teacher sends him back, and then it justifies itself because then she lets him cheat off her paper, and you're like, that's why we stayed with her, because this was going to inform what happens next. It's very, sometimes you watch movies and you don't really feel the hand of the director, and I know that that's something that some people like. I don't mind it. I actually like when I can see it.
It needs to have identity, and it needs to have its personality, doesn't it?
Yeah, a lot of the personality of the film comes from the way it's handled, the way it's been directed. Yeah, 100%.
Well, it's clearly a story that Dano wants to tell, because I see Dano as the little boy.
He's Joe, isn't it?
Yeah, he's a little boy.
Yeah, totally. But that thing when directors
he looks
put
exactly
an actor
like
in the
him.
film, exactly. Yep. And they
I had to Google it like kid or something.
I know.
Yeah,
he does look very, very like him.
Well, he looks like Dax Shepard too, even more so than Paul Dano.
Oh yeah,
that threw me off because I thought maybe he was Dax Shepard's kid or something. But
CGI'd his face or something.
Now Ed Oxenbould, we've been giving him props for a while now, and it's like I didn't know his name, and now I do. I looked it up.
Ed Oxenbould.
Yeah,
good for Ed. He is stunning. Now, can I ask you guys, why is the movie called Wildlife?
I was going to ask you that exact same question. I was like, it doesn't really stand out for me, and it's kind of like, is it because they're behaving like animals? Like
it's an interesting
title. Instinctual of human nature rather than they're behaving more like animals than humans, isn't it? In the way they're going with their instincts and their needs.
Well, it's like if you want to go with like the poetic reading, when she takes Joe out to see the fires, and then he says, what happens to the animals? And she's like, well, they just move away. They move somewhere else because this is going to destroy them. And some of them get confused and run into the fire and die. And so that's the wildlife. And they are the wildlife in a way.
And that's what his dad did. They moved away and ran into the fire.
So exactly. That line. Thank you for bringing that up, Julio. I think that's three things in that line. Yeah, it's the three personalities. When she talks about the fire, for me, that's Jake Gyllenhaal. She says, you know what they call the trees that are left behind, the dead standing. That is her. And then yes, when he says what happens to the animals, and she says they run away or they get confused and burn up, that's Joe, I think.
Yeah, but then Jay
he's that
Gyllenhaal, when
wildlife.
he comes back, doesn't he say well? But he says it as two
Oh,
words.
it's a wildlife, boy.
That's for the.
Like, no, tone that down. Don't drop the movie title into the movie. I didn't want it in this one.
Peter Griffin sitting in the cinema. He said it.
He said it.
And go home now.
I also did that hit the one little bit of overacting actually in the movie. That for me,
Boy, when
with
he
the
goes,
whole
boy.
yeah.
It walked up to the line.
Boy.
For me. It did. Yeah, okay. Yeah, maybe it didn't cross. It threatened to, but I think because so much of it was like held back and like really well, very, very restrained up to that point. And then when he comes back, it suddenly becomes, oh, now we're going to act. We're going to act out again. Even when he goes to the bar with him and Joe starts telling him about his mum, how he's encountered Miller a couple of times. Even then, it's slightly overacted, but it works because neither of them are making eye contact.
Yep.
Like, they're sat side by side, and Gyllenhaal's looking to the wall, and Joe is looking anywhere but at his dad's because of how awkward the situation is. Another thing, which is probably bullshit, but I liked the metaphor, rightly or wrongly. His dad goes to work with fire. His mum worked in a swimming pool, water. He works with photography cameras, which have both water, like stop baths, like the development of film has a flammable nature to it, but also there's a lot of water involved in developing the film. So he's like in the middle of the two of them.
Deep, innit?
Well, they went fire, water, and photography.
You got it. Dano's like, he fucking got it.
You got it,
Get
baby.
me.
He's going to be a patron.
Tell
now.
me if that's in one of the supplements, Julio, when you watch that disc.
It could be the fire and water though against each other though. Like she's working in a swimming pool to put out. Like
Opposing
just simple
forces.
is just They don't
Yeah.
go, do they? They can't coexist, can they? One of them's got to lose,
One of them's got to move out of Montana.
and you can never destroy water. Water is the only thing in the
Maryland,
world you
I think
can't
that's where she
destroy.
goes. I wanted to push back against the idea. Well, maybe not. Okay, what do you guys think? Because I know that Ben said that Gyllenhaal goes out into the fire in a way out of a to reclaim his testosterone, which I think there's something to it. But the more I thought about it, I think that it transcends gender. Like I was thinking about just what, in this specific instance, like what unemployment can do to you. And I think it affects both men and women in a similar way. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of a shame that we don't have like a female podcaster here right now to either set us straight or or agree. But I think the story could play if you swap the genders and it's the dad having, staying home and the mom leaving for the exact same circumstances. I would still believe it. I think that I'm at a point where I can believe that losing your job and it can be tied into like losing your sense of worth. And I don't think that it happens just to men. I think that it's more likely to happen to men just because of the way society has been structured for so many years. But this could be just like a very just specifically personal thing for me. But that was, like earlier in the lockdown, I was furloughed and I was basically unemployed for several months. And my wife, thank God, was, she was carrying us because she didn't lose her job and she had a job that paid enough that I was able to just kind of like get by on, unemployment until I found something else that didn't pay as much and all that stuff. But I remember it affecting me in a way where I was constantly questioning, like, am I feeling this way because I'm a dude and I'm a guy and I feel like I should be the one leading here? Or is it just affecting me because I'm a human being and it just feels weird after some point?
Is what it is. It's like, where do you stand? What are you doing to help? Like you've got your pack or something, and you have to enter something into it to feel worthwhile to get out what they're giving you.
But I could dig that. I could dig that reading in the film if Gyllenhaal had been more open to taking one of the better offers that he was getting work-wise,
Yeah.
because then
Yeah,
he
that's where the
there'd be
sympathy
no
doesn't
need
come
to
from.
feel
Like, he went back to
yeah.
the golf club, like, just suck it up and move on with your life, mate.
Yeah, or just swallow your pride and go for another job.
Or
that
take
would
that
have
job,
been,
and while you're fucking around with that job, look for another one.
I think they make a point of saying that, like, when she says to him, how much does it pay? And he's like, $1 an hour. She's upset by that because it's like, that is nothing. Or it's not worth the risk for the reward that this family is going to get. I do think, I think, I'm probably being a bit harsh on him. Maybe there is a certain...
Do you think he was going to die?
Yeah, I thought that might play into it.
Then it's a bit too on the nose.
For some reason, I kept waiting for Carey Mulligan to come on to her son, because my understanding of the film was that was what it was about, like the absence of the father, Carey Mulligan.
Wow.
Particularly when she started going mad, I thought that was the way we were going.
Yeah.
I was glad it didn't happen,
When
but
she's
that's what
dancing
I
with
thought
him
the
and
film was
stuff.
about. Yeah. Doing the cha-cha. Oh, man.
Pretty awkward dance.
It was very awkward. I only realised when... So, you know when Joe goes into Miller's bedroom and he's going for the drawers and shit, and he sees that, like, support leg caliper thing in the cupboard? That was the guy that Jake Gyllenhaal was buffing the shoe of at the beginning at the golf club. So Jake Gyllenhaal was literally on his fucking knees buffing that guy's shoes, who would then go on to steal his wife.
Was it though? I don't think it was it?
That makes sense.
We
never
I
see
played
his
it
face,
back,
but-
and when he gets up, he looks like him. You never see his face. You never hear his name. But
He
you
could
look
have been
at
the
that
one
guy.
to complain about him as well and make him lose his job. Not only did he buff his shoe.
No, it was just that asshole owner who was like, "Don't fraternize with the guests." And you know, I like that. See, they made Gyllenhaal very sympathetic early on, because
Like, be personal.
apart from the fact he lost his job, when it's like, yeah, they don't like it when you're popular with people. They don't like it when you can get along with people, because it's like a threat. They want you to stay in your station. I've been like that in many workplaces where I get on with a lot of people, and then the boss is like, "Stop doing that." It's like, why? You want me to just come and be a fucking drone? I'm not gonna do that. He was very sympathetic up front, but I'm sorry, that fucking kid. Forget all of this. That kid did not deserve that shit. I want to read something to you, which you might know. This is something British poet. Have you heard this be the verse? This poem.
No.
I've listened to much.
This is wonderful poem. I know. Philip Larkin. They fuck you up, your mum and dad. They may not mean to, but they do. They fill you with the faults they had and add some extra just for you. But they were fucked up in their turn by fools in old-style hats and coats, who half the time were soppy stern and half at one another's throats. Man hands on misery to man. It deepens like a coastal shelf. Get out as early as you can and don't have any kids yourself.
Is that what you read out at your parents' wedding?
That's what I read at my parents' wedding. Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
But they do. They fuck you up, your mum and dad. That nobody can fuck you up like family. And coming back to that original shit, that when Dana was like, I want to tell stories about dysfunctional family, whatever they decide to do, whether they have great ambition or they're doing it for reasons of better self-improvement, whatnot, you got a kid, your life has changed. You can't do whatever the fuck you want to do. You can't decide. You can't be selfish anymore.
I'm talking to you
can't
here,
be
Paul.
fucking selfish. Paul knows better than anyone. Like, if anyone can be selfish, the three of us can be very selfish and do things that people, if we were parents, would go, you can't do that.
You can't
Look at
go
me,
out
I'm
all night.
messing Woody up right now. I'm sitting in his bedroom recording a podcast. He could be going to bed
I
right
know.
now.
He's writing. He's writing now. He fucked me up, my dad.
I just wanted to go to sleep.
That's all right. In 12 years or so, he's going to be taking a picture of you. Dad, just pose there.
I
With your
mean,
microphone.
come on, like, sad. The mark of a
It's
great
just the
final
facial
shot.
expressions of both of them. Like, the acted across every person on that was like...
Everyone, it's a very melancholic moment. Everyone
You
is
can't
sad.
even tell the people to act. It's just quite an instinctual way to act in that moment, I think.
I fucking just the way that ends. It's like you say, Julio. When it ends, you have to sort of sit there. There's very few films that when the credits come up, I just have to sit for a
It's like
fair
watching
while.
The Sopranos finale again.
That's for different reasons.
Yeah, I think that what makes it sadder is that, well, I guess it would be sad no matter what, but he is old enough and he's proven to be aware enough that he knows exactly what's happening. The kid, like Joe, he's taking that photo not thinking that, well, we're a happy family. He's just taking that photo because this is the best that he can get. And well, I might as well do it.
Yeah, let me grab this. Like the guy saying to him at the time.
You can fake anything in a photo as well.
Yeah, which, I mean, we do. That is how photos, you know, A Million Ways to Die in the West, that stupid Seth MacFarlane film is very bad. However, it captures that moment in time where photographs were first being taken and people just didn't smile, because why would you? Photograph is just take a picture of my face, so everyone's just standing there miserable, and it's like, no, smile so it looks like you're enjoying this. That's what we do for photos all the time. But there is something very human about photos, and people talk about it in many different films and whatnot, but the reason that people take photos with family and friends and whatnot is because of the Instagram age, this vainglorious thing. But prior to that, it was like to say, look, here we are, we're happy, we're here together. And that's why you have photos of your family and friends and your loved ones up and around you, because it's like, they're there, here, I have this. And for that kid at the end to sit there and take that and be like, let me just take this, let me try and hold this on. It's desperately sad, man. I really feel for that. I really feel for that kid.
So this is the last. Well, when will this ever happen again, where you could have all your family in one place and
and then being civil to each other at least. Yeah.
It's like 6 Feet Under, Ben. Have you seen 6 Feet Under, Julio?
6 Feet Under, exactly.
One of my favorite. Yes. It's that and The Leftovers fighting for number one spot.
Very good. Very good.
Very good choices, man.
So you can't take a picture of this moment because it's already gone.
Yeah.
He's trying to capture his family, but his family's already gone apart, separated.
I know, that's it. Fuck. That kid, man. I mean, I hope this is how good the film is, that I hope after the credits roll that kid's okay. I want him
almost
to be
a
all
second
right.
film for just no reason, just to see if they're happy.
The second film is The Master. He grows up to be Joaquin Phoenix, and that is not a happy ending. I mean,
or it's Batman, and he just turns into the Riddler.
That's after The Master. See, because Mr. Miller said that the army shaped him up. So he goes, he enlists, The Master happens, Philip Seymour Hoffman fucks him up even more, so then he becomes the Riddler.
And then Batman fucks him up altogether.
The one, I don't know if this means anything or not, but she in the diner says something like, I hate my name, or I wish I wasn't called Jeanette.
Benny and Jeanette.
Joe calls her mum. Miller calls her Jenny. Gyllenhaal calls her Jean, and her name is Jeanette. So she goes by 4 different names in this film. Why?
She's struggling with her identity.
I wouldn't think anything. Yeah, well, that's it. There you go. Thank you. That's okay. I agree. That's
What did you say?
He's struggling with identity.
All right. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. Is there anything to be said about how fucking good that fire looked, considering that was CGI? That's some of the most convincing fire I've seen. You know the scene when they come out of the car? Whoa.
Oh, you're talking about the fire in the forest. I thought you were talking about the fire on Mr. Miller's house.
Oh, yeah, sorry, the fire in the forest, yeah.
Yeah,
I thought it was
great.
Very impressive.
I was impressed by
this is all Dano.
The Mr. Miller fire, just because it was so violent. I guess I don't know what I was expecting.
Well, I thought Jerry was going to go up like a Shaolin monk. I thought that's what he was doing. He was about to just burn himself in that house. And I thought, fuck, we're going for a hard conclusion.
Yeah, I did.
He may as well have.
I felt like there's something like that was coming as well, like the really dark moment. And then Mr. Miller just runs out of his other woman. He's like, I've already moved on. I've already moved on, Jenny.
You know, at that moment, my mind was going, oh, fuck, here's a big twist. We're getting a big reveal here, because I thought, who's this woman that's coming out? Miller is acting like really innocent. I thought something's happening here. One of these characters is not going to be real, or something. Something's been played out
Hollywood
Not how
has
we
fucked us up
expect.
then, because I had the same feeling, and I'm like, that doesn't
Did
make
you?
any sense. It's not that kind of movie. Why am I even going there? But I thought that there was
Yes.
also, like, were they never
It would have been
there?
very baffling.
Is there another
I
Mr.
was
Miller?
thinking, has the kid played this all out in his head because he just missed his
Maybe
dad?
he's the one who's insane and setting fire to the guy's house.
Yeah.
Well, look at all of this, yeah.
I think it's just Mr. Miller living his best life.
Yeah.
I'm just sleeping with all these women. I'm happy. Don't come burn my house down.
He just and he's learning to swim at the same time.
Yeah.
You can't drown me. You can set fire to me, but you can't drown me.
I'm very excited for whatever Dano does next.
Is it anything been
there is
announced? Or?
I don't think so. But it's come at a time like now. This didn't used to happen, I don't think. Maybe I'm wrong, but this is a 21st century phenomenon for the most part. Like ignoring people like Charles Chaplin and stuff like that. But this whole thing of actors directing, it feels like a 21st century conceit. We don't really have it from the 80s and 90s actors directing shit. Now, 21st century is if you become a big commercial actor, you start directing.
Well, because people
also.
You probably want to become you got more creativity. It's like people would more like to lend their hand at other stuff nowadays, aren't they? People make music now. They can act. They can make a song. They can draw art. Like if you've got creative in your blood, then why would you not give it a go? If someone gives you some money to do it.
I disagree. I'd say that there's loads of people in history who are actors who decide to direct. It's just their films end up being shit, and nobody watches them. The amount of times we've gone to an actor and be like, "What? They made a film?" And then you go, "I've never even heard of it."
True, yeah. Yeah, it just doesn't get that sort of exposure.
Yeah, come on, just think of give me an actor. Someone not modern day. Someone.
Jeff Goldblum.
Oh, good one.
Pacino.
I'd be surprised if he's directed something.
So Pacino has done a couple of Shakespearean.
Oh, that's right. He did Looking for Richard.
Types.
Never mind. I've seen that one.
Yeah, he did Looking for Richard. Yeah.
I was going to say De Niro, but he's done a couple.
Oh, look, Jeff Goldblum directed a short film called Little Surprises.
Yeah, it's just short.
Short film. Yeah.
We're talking feature over here.
But he's directed.
Sigourney Weaver. What she directed? Jamie Lee Curtis. What she directed?
Halloween 3.
Okay,
Where's the female
no,
actor?
don't do actresses because that's harder.
That's harder,
if
right?
they
Yeah,
want to, they
exactly.
just the system is
That's
not
Hollywood.
built
It's
for
true.
that.
She hasn't directed anything.
Johnny Depp feels like he should have directed something, but I can't.
Yeah, but I don't know if
imagine
he's a
what
different
that would
type of creative actor, isn't it?
Johnny Depp did The Brave. Did he?
He's done. Yeah, he's done
Okay.
The Brave. Yeah, and he's also done. Is that a short? Yeah, he's done a couple of shorts as well.
Has anyone successfully transitioned from actor to director, and they are now better known as a director?
Mel
I don't
Gibson,
think. Mel Gibson?
No, he's still
He's-
primarily an actor.
Clint
definitely,
Eastwood.
but his
Yeah.
films are probably better than the films he's been in.
Yeah, I'd rather see what he's directed than what he starred in. Yeah,
Even The Passion
Clint
of the
Eastwood
Christ.
is right.
Yeah, Clint Eastwood.
Yeah,
And there
Clint
you go,
Eastwood.
Eastwood.
I think that's just as much as age as anything.
so basically, Republican right wing actors, yeah, make better directors. That's what we're saying. I mean, I don't have too much more to say on it. And I just to come back to what your original comment on the whole thing, Adam, is that the idea of it being kind of like, well, was that it?
This is what I
type
mean.
thing.
I've enjoyed talking
liked
about it. And I really
Yeah, but I
enjoyed it.
liked
And
it
you
for
enjoyed
that
this.
reason.
But it's just that impactful. I don't know. It's like a really nice cake and you just missed out on a simple ingredient. It's something so simple. It doesn't have to be a lot. But just something.
It's like a Bakewell tart, but didn't have the cherry on top.
Not quite that cliche.
Yeah.
Not that cliche, but like that kind of just someone's made a nice bolognese and they might have forgotten the chili, just something to spice it
Here
up.
come
a
the
bit.
food analogy.
Haven't put the chocolate in it if you're Ben.
Yeah.
What
They forgot the
dish
chocolate.
is wildlife like? That's
Yeah.
Oh, So it's something colourful. It's got quite a bit of colour in it, isn't it?
I wouldn't say it's colourful.
It kind of the colours
It's
pop.
got a rich palette, so it's something. Yeah, it's got a pop on the plate, not necessarily colourful.
Maybe
but
something
pop.
Mexican.
Yeah, I think you're right.
and it's there's a fire, so spicy.
Nachos, maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know. That's not really a good one. That's a bit too party. That's a bit too pleasing. It needs to be a bit more of an out there film that not everybody's going to like because it's not a middle of the road, is it?
It's like an enchilada, but they didn't put the cheese on it.
No,
purpose.
because enchiladas
It's
again.
not that they forgot.
I don't know enough Mexican food, but it needs to be something out there that people like a risotto. People would only go for it if we're in the mood for it.
I think it's just a 6-pack of beer.
Budweiser.
Yeah.
Miller Lite.
No explanation.
Yeah.
Dano Light.
He was actually, I think the implication was that he was a bit of a deadbeat alcoholic. Maybe not alcoholic, but he's sipping on beers early on in the film when everything's fine at home while she's helping him with the homework. Then when he's fired, immediately buys the 6-pack.
But I think that
He was a
that
bit-
goes
he
with
was
the
a deadbeat.
setting, you know, like the
Yeah.
early,
True. Yeah. Yeah.
what is it, 50s, 60s?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't put my finger on it.
I'd have said it was
50s, 60s. Also, this is, as good as Ed's, what was his name? Whatever
Oxenbolt.
was. As great as he was, this is the best thing I've ever seen Kerry Mulligan in. This is her greatest performance for me
Really?
so far. Yeah, what do you pick?
Maybe, God, what's the one with Andrew Garfield and Never Let Me Go? She's really good in Never Let Me Go.
No, I haven't seen that. I haven't seen
What about
that.
when she's
But I
in
think
Guardians
I've
of the
seen it.
Galaxy?
What?
Is
Is
she?
she in Guardians of the Galaxy? No,
I don't
think
think
someone
so.
else
He's
then.
just saying all this to sass me for no reason.
Only she
Oh
thought-
no!
I feel like-
Promising young woman.
Oh,
I know, yeah, but I think this is
Oh, yeah, I'm thinking someone
better
else.
than
Nah,
that. But
it's
yeah.
not better than Promising Young Woman.
Well, no, maybe her
she's-
performance, not as the film, is what Ben said.
She's great in Promising Young Woman as well. She's great in it.
Everything, film and acting ability, better.
Behave yourself.
I love
I think
Promising Young
that-
Woman, but
she gets asked to play not girly, but I feel like she is. In a lot of films, it's like you're going to be girly. You're going to be girly. And
She plays woman scorned. She's the same in Drive as well.
Yeah, in Drive, she's a non-entity in Drive. She's there. She exists
Yeah.
for fucking Gosling to bounce off of, and that's it.
Overrated, isn't it?
It is over. I like it.
I like it, but it's
I'd say
overrated.
so. I mean,
it is overrated.
Yeah.
Maybe
This is going to make Alex even angrier than the Halloween performance.
It's an 8 out of 10. And you move on.
It's a lot of style, but I think this is great. Man, I'm so excited for Dano's future now. I wish him nothing but the best, and I can't like.
He's going to keep making
if
Batman
he
films
has a
and not
film coming
making
out-
directing films.
No, it's okay. I mean, Batman is probably now his biggest film, right? In terms of the mass audiences knowing him, they're going to know him as Riddler from
Yeah, of course.
Batman. Like Jenny generally knows actors, even if they're a bit obscure. But like when I said, "Oh yeah, it's directed by Paul Dano," yesterday, she was like, "Who's that?" And I was like, I could say There Will Be Blood, but it's probably harder for you to remember that one kid who's in it for a bit than for me to just go the Riddler.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, I don't want to say that. I don't want to go. I don't want to reduce him to the Riddler." Because you're much more than that.
It'd be
But
that. It'd be that, or the guy in the shower in Prisoners.
Yeah, Prisoners. What's your go-to Dano reference, Julio? If
Looper.
you had to say, Dano. What?
Looper. Like
Oh yeah, good
the
one.
weird guy
Good
in
one.
Looper.
Who's he in Looper?
He's
His
like,
always-
when he, is it his arm? They start like cutting stuff into his
Yeah,
arm.
they start
and-
torturing and chopping stuff off him, don't they?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, fuck.
Or
Bit more sunshine.
if I want to shock
been in a
someone,
bunch.
12 Years a Slave.
Oh yes.
He's this
Oh, yes.
super racist
Yeah,
guy
yeah.
singing the super racist song.
Always a terrible monster in things for the most part.
Plays it well.
Too well.
You know, him and... Oh, forget it. I can't remember the name of the actor. I'll message you afterwards. There's an actor that the two of them on stage or in a film, double header, would be amazing. It's the guy from Ravenous.
Leonardo DiCaprio.
Come on, let's try and figure out this actor. He's in
Leonardo
Ravenous.
DiCaprio.
Oh,
In Revenant?
from the Full Monty?
No, it's not Robert Carlyle. He's lower. He's not his name. Even if I heard it, I might go, yeah.
Oh,
maybe that's it.
Ravenous. Oh, sorry.
He's in Ravenous.
thought you said
He's,
Revenant.
Guy Pearce in Ravenous.
he's in Saving Private Ryan.
Matt Damon.
He's the guy in Saving Private Ryan who, towards the end of the movie, turns out to be a real coward, and then
Barry Pepper.
Jeremy Davis.
Jeremy Davis.
Yeah.
Paul Dano and Jeremy Davis in a double header on stage. Fuck, I don't care what the story is. If the two of them, I'm there.
Put them at a kitchen table in a bit of a gritty location and let them go.
Oh, amazing!
Outquirk each other.
Are we going to do scores?
Yeah, let's do some scores.
I think it's scores time.
Yeah.
Scores
Do you want to do it in the
scores.
order? The order we did our first impressions?
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm giving it a 6.
What?
I wasn't blown away with this film. I wasn't blown away. I enjoyed the conversation, but it doesn't. It's. I'm not going to remember this film in a year's time.
See, I was not
You,
expecting that.
the one parent here in this conversation.
I'm not those parents.
But
That's
the
why it doesn't
fear
work
that
for
you
me.
could become one of them is
The
what-
fear.
Yeah. So I had this film at a 7 when I watched it, and that still didn't really stand for me. Like I didn't remember the film enough for really to back it up. When I came out of it, I was like, "Is it a 7? Is it an 8?" I was probably going to say a 7, but I think this conversation has made me embrace the film a bit more, and probably going to make me remember the film more because I probably remember this conversation on it. So it's going to be an 8.
Give it a couple of months. I don't think you'll say it's an 8.
Yeah, but I remember it from this podcast now. The podcast has cemented it. That's what I needed.
The sentimentality of the podcast because you give it a bit more.
You can have a
effort
good
and
conversation
time
about
than
something. It
otherwise.
doesn't mean it's.
I rewatched
it's a
Holy
great
Motors
film.
the other day, and the podcast was better than the film.
Well, I've talked myself up. As in this episode has talked me up from the rating that I was going to give it before. So last night I said to Jenny it was an 8, and Jenny challenged me. She said to me, "Why is it an 8? Because you're saying that something could have been better about it." And I was like, "Yeah." And she was like, "What could have been better?" And I was spinning my wheels. I was
Like the missing ingredient in this Mexican dish we made up.
Sometimes something just speaks to you, so you must give it something higher. She's like, "Okay, yeah, but why? What?"
This is you normally. It's the other end of this bullshit you hand out to people.
I know.
Yeah,
But thinking
it's that
about it
missing
and talking
ingredient.
about it, thinking about it more, that has juiced it up. And the fact of the matter is, there is one negative thing I can say about this film, and it's so minor that
says
that's not
wildlife.
enough. No, it's not that. Funnily enough, I didn't mention it, but it's the friendship with the girl, which I think is just a wasted element.
I don't know. I feel like
It's
that's quite
nothing.
nice because it shows how even he's insecure because his parents. He's always a bit like. I think his relationship that his parents are giving isn't impacting him to be as a person that he wants. The moving around has also changed him. Like he's almost scared to make the friendships.
I would have. I get that, but I would have liked.
I felt like they should have gone somewhere with it. It's like maybe it
Yes.
needed another scene with her to really,
couple more scenes,
or maybe him
something
even talking to
develop on
her
that.
about the problems. They could have used it in that way. Like,
Well, I think structurally, I agree with you, Ben, that it should have led somewhere else emotionally. It's structurally, I get it, because it's there to give us a break from the misery at home, and also to kind of reassure us that the kid's okay when you get to the end, because he's going to study with her, so that means that through
That's
all
true.
of this,
Yeah.
he managed to keep that relationship, so that was good.
He's got a friend. Yeah. So let's hope.
now he's got to give it a 10 now.
I missed out. I missed that actually at the end that she is still there. Anyway, it's a very strong and solid 9. I'm very excited. It's been a while since I've been excited by a
that is good.
contemporary film. So yeah, very good.
I'm right with him, with Ben, and I was also having that. Is it an 8 or a 9 dilemma? Because I finished it last night, and it was going to be an 8, and then like I said, that ending snuck up on me, and I'm like, wow, this is a 9. And then I was thinking, is it just a 9 because it really I was not ready for it? Does it hold up as a 9 when we talk about it? And it does. I think that it's deceptively simple, because I think that everything that it deals with is very complex, and that is to treasure. Just that a movie can do so much with so little as far as the plot. And my one, it's not even a complaint, but the thing that I know threw me off, and that I need to kind of talk myself through it so that I can appreciate it, is how sudden her change is. And that's fine. That's like the way that the story is constructed. Like I said, you're seeing it from the point of view of the kid, so it's meant to feel sudden. If we were seeing it from Carey Mulligan's point of view, I think that transition would have been a little smoother. We would have been in her head, so we would have been able to see it. But that's not what the movie is doing. So I just kind of have to come to peace with it, and I think I have. So, but yeah, I'm giving it a 9. It's really good. I expect to enjoy it even more the next time I watch it, but it's not going to happen for a while because it was just a rough watch. That kid goes
it's
through
not a film you
lot.
watch 6 months later.
Yeah. I'm glad that he turns out, he manages to, this family in general, make it through it, but it's still really, it's a rough watch, and it's a really sad ending. So
this Peruvian film that we were going to watch that we couldn't find any in English subtitles, do you enjoy this more than that film?
Yeah, I think this is a better movie. The Peruvian movie we're going to watch is more of a thriller, and that would have been more of a novelty, like more of a genre movie, as in like, hey, look, they make these kind of movies in Peru.
It more.
Yeah.
You would. Yeah.
We'll get to it. We'll get to it eventually.
Okay. I'm surprised Paul gave it so low. I was expecting a 7 from you, Paul, but I was not expecting anything lower than that.
I think that I'm kidding, but I think that you just consider yourself such a better parent than those two that you just couldn't bring yourself
He's
to
judgmental bastard.
That's what it is.
He's the Katie of this episode. He's like, that's a horrible person. No, I hate the film.
Well, that gives us an average of an 8 out of 10. So shall we see where it places in our list? It goes like halfway down.
For no reason.
Halfway down. It's for a very good reason, Adam.
Is it 8 bang on, is it?
Yeah, 8 bang on. So let's go to the scoreboard and we'll come back to tell you where it places.
So we took a time out there. We averaged the scores up. We averaged that out as an 8, which means that it is contending with about 10 other 8s. The lowest 8 was The Hunger, Tony Scott's film. And we said it's better than that. The next on the list was Midnight Run. And very quickly we decided it was not better than Midnight Run. It's De Niro, what are you going to do?
Julio, you have been beaten by Jamie.
Jamie's Midnight Run beats Julio's Wildlife.
You can go fight him in the car park if you want.
Well, we just have to wait and see how Jamie feels about Wildlife, and maybe he'll bump its score next time he sees it.
Jamie's going to be all over that. As a teacher of film, I think it's one of those.
It's funny how that list goes, because like the next film up was Last Jedi, and this is better than Last Jedi, but then the next is The Exorcist 3, and Exorcist 3 is better than this. Then the next is Lego Batman. This is better than Lego Batman. It's like, higgledy. But it's still an admirable position for it. So, as you heard, listeners, Last Jedi is above it, and that's where it sits. It's in the top half of the table as opposed to the bottom half.
Yeah.
And
it's all Paul's fault, really.
Paul has kept it down, just like I've tried to keep many Marvels down.
Absolutely. So should we move on to Julio? You can give a rating to anything on this list and just mess with the table a bit.
Perfect segue. Speaking of keeping Marvels down.
What's he going to do now?
I warned you on the DM. It's just, I hadn't even thought about this. You had to bring it up during the Two Popes episode. And now I'm like, really? Captain Marvel is on your bottom 20? That movie is so good.
Hey, the thing about that is I actually liked Captain Marvel. I thought it was okay. I think it's better than a lot of the other Marvel films.
Yeah, it deserves better. I wouldn't even bother if it was right out of the top, the bottom 20, but it's like number 20, I think, and that can't stand.
Number 19 now.
19, yeah.
19, yeah, no, that needs to help. I'll give it the score that I gave it on Letterboxd more than once, because I've seen that movie like 3 times. It's a 9.
Whoa, it's getting pushed.
What's better, Wildlife or Captain Marvel?
That's a good question. There's 2 different types of exhilaration. Like Wildlife is that sad exhilaration of you just like, God, this hurts, but this feels like real life. And Captain Marvel, when she basically destroys the patriarchy by beating the shit out of Jude Law, that's like the fuck yeah exhilaration of like.
That was the only bit I remember of that film.
Was Jude Law in Captain Marvel?
Yeah, he's a bad guy. And he's trying to goad her into like...
He's in his little spaceship. I remember him and he just fucked up.
Yeah, he trains her at first, and then it's revealed that he's the bad guy that's been lying to her. And so the final moment of the movie is he's goading. She's powerful enough to just defeat him with like her pinky. And he's trying to goad her into fighting hand to hand. And she just doesn't fall for it. She's like, I have nothing to prove to you. she just beats him very quickly.
This totally makes sense to me that Julio, you would be giving Captain Marvel a higher rating, because when I think about your podcast overall, a hell of a lot of the films that you guys cover are 90s period. You know, like a lot of podcasts will be like, it's 80s is the theme. You guys love tackling 90s films and loads of 90s films that people haven't really even heard of a hell of a lot of time. Half the time I haven't heard of what you're covering. The 90s has a certain sentimentality to you and Alex. So that makes sense why you would give Captain Marvel so high, because it's a 90s nostalgia fest.
It is.
Got Blockbuster in it, isn't it?
Yeah. It's got 9 Inch Nails. She wears a 9 Inch Nails t-shirt as well. My goodness. in a Marvel film, 9 Inch Nails.
So
is that
the interesting thing about this, right? So Julio brings this episode to us, right? And I say, this film's not very good. And I scorn him, right? He comes along, tries to upgrade a Marvel film in my favour to try and scorn you two, right?
Yeah.
But then it raises to a 6.75. He's only scorning himself because it's got to contend with Glass.
I hate Glass, so this is perfect. Captain Marvel and Glass.
I mean, Glass is better.
Ben, you need to rewatch Glass.
Julio, I went to see Glass for my birthday, so I have a very sentimental.
And you saw it at the night Odeon cinema.
How much?
And it was a really nice.
How much are you
Odeon?
How much are you drunk before the movie even started?
I had a fair bit.
Well, there you go. That explains
You've watched it
everything.
again since, haven't you?
No, I don't think I have. So
I personally would say Captain Marvel's better than Glass. So
yeah, I think that now Glass has an extra layer, because if you see it, knowing what we know about Bruce Willis now, I think that you watch it and you just be sad. Like, it used to frustrate me how little they did with the character, and now I think there's a good chance that they were just truncated because they couldn't do more, because there's only so much you can do with Bruce Willis at that time based on his health. So I may be willing
you
to
understand.
I understand the logistics. Doesn't make it a better movie. It just makes me a little more compassionate towards
Ben's acted like he was ahead of the curve. Now you understand.
I always do. Well, we're not here to talk about Glass, but I think for me, it's one of the original superhero movies, which I very much enjoyed.
Well, there you go.
It's a superhero movie as well. There you go. It's a superhero movie which I give a very high rating to. 9.
It is.
I think that's the highest superhero movie, along with Black Panther, for me. That we've covered.
Dark Knight.
I think so.
Like the Ben's like,
no,
we're not here to
covered.
talk about Glass,
right.
but I'm gonna drop this bombshell.
It's because people come on this podcast, Kate and Oti last time, and they take pot shots at things that I like. They took pot shots at Halloween Kills, so I had to go on a little Michael Myers rant for a bit.
At some point in an episode, Ben will rant about something for not a lot. No one's having an argument with him. He just argued himself, and we've all got the message, but he just has to keep going, and then he'll bring up Kevin Spacey.
Equilibrium is brought to the podcast.
Hang on a minute. You know the patrons?
Yeah.
We just got one live at the moment.
Did we actually?
Here he is. He wants to talk to you, Julio. Are you ready?
Oh, God.
Good morning.
He's back.
Good morning.
Speak to him,
You've
Julio.
got to talk to him, Julio.
Good morning.
How are you?
Very, very happy. Good
First,
morning.
I would like to just get to know you.
I don't know, man. It's Saturday. It's my day off. I have a lot of stuff to do.
Give me your address there.
I do not give my address out over the internet.
How did you know?
Because it's your voice. You're very recognizable.
I do not have any money.
That's Borat. That's on it doing Borat.
I do not have any money.
Ben, are you thinking of these answers before he's even given an answer? Like, is this whatever he
I
says?
don't want to go and get into that.
Whatever he says is going to have the same answer.
Yes, it's very difficult to do. The main thing is, I wish I had a massive board of it all in front of me, because I have to scroll down the page. It's all alphabetical as well, so it's not like clustered by like
You just get it on your computer
greetings,
instead.
questions. Yeah, I know. That's a lot of effort, Adam. There's no strategy
It's amazing
to how they lay all this out.
The real person, the real Arnie, is just in your phone.
I know, he just lives there.
He doesn't do anything else these days.
I know. The closest that I could get to actually making this all legible is do the greeting, do the questions, you give answers, so I bounce a bunch of questions, and then Arnie gets angry. The minute Arnie gets angry, it's hard to go anywhere from there, because once you do angry Arnie, there's no sorry. You can't rein it back in. No. There's no, I apologise, we start again, I'm sorry.
I'm learning.
Well, just so you know, if you want to become a patron just like Arnold Schwarzenegger, you can become a patron at www.patreon.com/filmbusters, where you can get exclusive content. You can go and watch the latest episode where Julio is answering questions about Michael Myers masks and what movies they're from. So that was a lot of fun.
Does he do well? Does he do well badly?
Well, you'll never know.
Or does he go in the middle and do all right?
Yeah. You'll never know unless you go listen. Is it fun being a patron, Julio?
It is the best. It brings me
so
much joy.
Is it better than being a Contrarian patron?
This is funny. This is what Adam said for your reference last week.
I will not engage in this bit of trolling. I will say it's
wasn't
very
as sassy
different.
as Katie's answer, but
I would say that the Contrarians patron is like goes toe for toe for us in terms of like duration of content. Like it's almost like a second podcast in terms of the amount of.
Well, it's just snowballed kind of like out of control, because originally Patreon was going to be things that we're not going to add to our workload. And now it's become, like you said, a second podcast almost. And I love it because we get to talk about different things that we don't talk about in the main show and the interaction and everything. But it is like an extra bit of recording and an extra bit of editing. And I'm slowly catching up. We've like falling out of sync. It used to be that I would drop an episode and then the after hours and all the supplements would be on the Patreon within a couple of days, and now we're just like full episodes out of sync. It makes me feel good that you guys kind of like do the same thing now, and it's fine. Like as a patron, I'm happy, like whenever something of yours drops, I just listen to it and I don't have to like really match it with a specific episode. It's just self-contained.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of your podcast, Julio, do you want to plug it?
Oh yes,
Might as well do it now.
Why not? The Contrarians. Look us up on our podcatcher. We talk about fresh movies on Rotten Tomatoes. We talk about them as if they were rotten. We talk about rotten movies on Rotten Tomatoes. We talk about them as if they were fresh. I have not looked up what wildlife is. I'm assuming it's fresh, but I don't know if it'd be fresh enough for us to do it on the show. Quick.
It's 94%.
Holy cow, 94%. Wow. So yeah, we could do it on the show and just talk about it as if it was a terrible movie. We'd be even more negative than Paul. We just wouldn't give it a chance. And then on the second half of the show, we tell you how we really feel. So I would just be praising it all throughout. And I think this is the kind of movie Alex would like too. He's a big Paul Dano fan to begin with. And he likes Jake Gyllenhaal. So yeah, no, I think he would like it. But yeah, that's the show. It's a lot of fun. We don't do just 90s movies, but we do a lot of 90s movies. I hadn't really thought about it until Ben brought it up. We just
the 90s boys, the Contrarians, the 90s boys.
Yes. Should be dropping The Lighthouse, which is not a 90s movie.
There you go.
Not. Can't wait. Love that.
Yeah.
I seen you sparring with the gull. Love that. What a line. Sparring with the gull. If you guys, no, I'm sure you won't like it. I don't spoil it, but I'm pretty sure neither of you will like it. I think you're actually going to be quite hard on it. Yeah, I reckon. I reckon they go. You either go with that kind of film and you're totally immersed in it, or you and Alex. I can hear the lines. I can see what they were going for, but and then there being an endless list of not pretentious, because you don't really call things that for being pretentious, but I can imagine you really not taking to it, not liking the lyrical beauty of this.
Well, I
these
thought,
two.
yeah, I don't know.
I'm not going to spoil it.
I've got their number on this.
But I'm going to tell you, I mean, as you would know, the movie's like 94%, I think, Rotten Tomatoes. It's really high. So we spend the first half just making fun of it because whether you like it or not, it's very easy to make fun of. So,
did you watch it with subtitles?
Yeah, there's no way that you can't watch it without subtitles.
Julio, have you seen what Robert Pattinson's character looks like, what he's actually wearing if you don't do it in black and white.
I've seen it in color.
He looks like fucking Mario.
Yes, he does.
He's in the blue and red. It's like, it gives a whole different meaning to that film. Like, how could Willem Dafoe do that, taking that seriously?
I thought you were fond of me lobster. Love that.
Love it. But you guys, you got to go check out the podcast. It's absolutely amazing. It's one of the best podcasts around. It's one of my favourites.
The second best podcast in town.
Yeah, second. Sorry, Julio. Second place.
Top 5. Maybe there's other people listening that want to be second. Top 5.
Ben, before we sign off, do you want to say what film we're doing next?
So, Julio has come along and brought 2018 to our table. So he's kicked it off with Wildlife, off to a good start as far as I'm concerned. But we'll see what's going to happen on the rest of this journey. So let's tease it. This is going to excite Paul, I think, very, very much. Our next film
could be a horror.
Okay.
Comes from the brain of Garth Marenghi himself. Directed by Matthew Holness. This is a British horror film starring Sean Harris, who played the creep in that underground film where the creep was walking around.
Yeah.
The plot is a disgraced children's puppeteer returns to his childhood home and is forced to confront his wicked stepfather and the secrets that have tortured him his entire life. This is 2018's Possum.
I have no idea what this is.
None of us have seen this.
As in the
Very
animal.
good.
I would advise you don't even Google the image because the poster, without having seen it, feels like it could be a spoiler.
I need to find out where can we find it then, Paul? Ben?
You can find it in the UK on Amazon Prime.
Oh, okay. That's all right.
Possum.
It is a nice and tight 85 minutes as well. It's quite highly rated, and I remember at the time there being a lot of buzz about Garth Marenghi doing actually a fucking scary horror film.
Yeah.
Unsurprisingly, in the States, you can find it on Tubi, where you can find
Wonderful.
all this
I'm
obscure
glad
thing.
it's even in the States. So that's what we're doing. We're doing Best of British next.
What's Tubi then? Is it like a high level streaming
No,
service?
it's more of a. Alex called it the Island of Misfit Toys because that's where you find these obscure movies. It's a free streaming service, but they put ads every I don't know, 20 minutes or so.
I think we
good.
have the equivalent of that. It's called Freevee.
Yeah.
That's like
That's
the Amazon
Prime.
sponsored one, right?
Yeah.
It used to be IMDb TV.
That's right.
And
Yeah. Well, that's exciting. Looking forward to that. And that's 2018.
I
kicking
think I
this
know.
off.
I think I know what might be coming up on this journey. I was half tempted to do it.
I haven't even
but-
looked.
Oh, you haven't?
Nope.
Well, maybe it won't come up then. But I think I know it will come up, and I wouldn't be averse to it.
Thank you so much, Julio, for joining us. It's been wonderful, as always.
Thank you for having me. It's been a blast. This is how everybody should start their Saturday.
Absolutely.
Oh, our king, our newly elected king, has joined us for the day. And what are you going to do with the rest of your Saturday, Julio? While we've wasted ours, what are you? Not because we're talking to you. I mean, because we're at the end of the day. What are you going to do? We're time traveling here. We're time traveling. We're in 6 o'clock Saturday, Julio. You've got all the rest of your day.
I have a couple things to do before I hit publish on that Lighthouse episode, and then Saturday is generally the day I spend with my wife. So she's got control over whatever happens next, and then on Sunday I take back the reins and I just do all the other podcast stuff. So
You spend a lot of time doing the podcast.
well, like I was saying, like
This guy who just sits here doing no editing and everything. A lot of time on a podcast.
Would you let me edit an episode?
No.
Exactly. So we'll move on from that conversation.
Fieldmaster.